All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for sadness.
Right,
yes,
yeah.
And lots of sadness.
I was straight up considering doing that, but I'm like, no. I'm just going to keep it to the name of the show. But yeah.
Episode 5 of sadness.
Exactly. Yep.
And why...
Sadness and emotions and
why can't these
feelings.
kids' trauma get treated? Like,
exactly. Now
seriously.
you understand why I said that this show is basically, why didn't you give those kids therapy sessions, the anime, like because they need to work this stuff out,
Yukiyatsu, man.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bro.
But hey, now that people have seen you like this, and now that you've been sort of forced to be vulnerable about it, maybe you can, move forward. Maybe you can start to learn.
I think so, yeah. I think that this being so perfectly set up, really, in order to catch him in that regard, that enough of the group will be able to be gracious and, patient with him.
And understand where some of his harsher words have come from.
Yeah, exactly. But, hey, at the very least, buddy, Suruko's here for you.
Yep. That's right.
That's Suruko. That is why this happened. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this sadness. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah. Suruko, yeah. Yep.
Yep.
でもメンマに見えるかユキヤちゃんと見えるかメンマが死んだのは俺のせいなんだ何言ってんだよ
Okay, here comes his perspective. Here we go.
あんなことを言わなければメンマは死ななかった俺がメンマを死なせたんだよ俺の前なんだ化けてでも呪ってでも俺の前にでもメンマは出てこなかった俺の前にはどこにもいないんだよ
Oh, that. Ugh.
メンマがここにいるよって言ってる
Oh.
メンマが雪やつにパッチンありがとうごめんねって満足かおい
Oh, man.
結構前から学校帰り付き合わされてたから意もしない彼女にプレゼントするふりして海は出し切った方がいいしただあいつ少年から腐ってるから海全部出し切っちゃったら何も残らないかもしれないけど
Oh. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
メンマ
ブスなんかじゃないメンマはこれ俺の大好きなメンマに
Whoa.
ごめんえジンタン行っちゃうからメンマジンタン追いかけないとだから
And that was literally the last time he saw her.
Oh. So he eventually went back to go look for it. And probably picked it up as Menma, right? So they could put it on. Yep, on the... Wait, yeah. Oh, shit. Wait, so he gave it to her?
おい
Well, okay, it's its own thing then. Okay. All right. Oh, man. Oh, my
ちゃん
God.
ラーメンなかったから代わりに
代わりってこんなにいっぱい
The most convenientest of convenience store food. It's what he needs probably right now. He's like, I need to,
お話があるの
oh. Okay.
話ってそれよりほらガリガリ君溶けちまうぞ
メンマのお願い叶えてほしいの
All right.
俺だって俺なりに忙しいんだよ お前のことばっかかまけてる暇ねえの。
Hey, hey, hey.
ただいま
おお
可愛くない。
Oh.
なんだよ俺なりって何が忙しいんだよ。
Oof.
その繰り返しだろ。
Too real.
なのに
That's so fun to do. I've had those before.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
でもほんとなる子近頃人付き合い悪くなったからさ。
Wow. Talking to her
友達や
without
めよう
looking.
かって言ってたんだよね、うちら。もう、春菜冗談きついよねえなる子。
When we talk about intelligence, did our best only.
Ooh. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. These two. Let's focus on these two.
普段通りだなお前。 普段通りすぎて気味悪い。
じゃあどうしてほしいわけ？自尊心のバランス取るために都合よく使わないでもらえる？
Mm-hmm.
お前のおかげでいろいろ踏みとどまれたよ。ありがとな。
Okay. Perfect time to have another train come by and provide that little bit of a
あれで好きだとか言ってさ。
barrier distraction and such. Oh.
わざわざ電車乗って街まで出てきて。
衣装やらで何かに変わらなきゃやり過ごせないんでしょ。
Ooh. Tsuruko, you've got some good dialogue.
いやじゃあなんでもいい。
Wait, are these college boys?
楽しんでる。
Yeah.
なんか無理してるように見えるけど、二人で抜けようか。悪い。俺となる子ちゃん離脱する。
はあ？
ワンピース見ないとだし。
Ah!
ワンピースはあさってだろ。
Bringing shame on the name of One Piece.
Yeah, is he...
行こうか。
あ、はい。
Well, he hasn't stopped to listen to anything she might say in response.
Yeah.
駅ってこっち？
抜けるってそうじゃないでしょ。それに俺マジで飲みすぎたし、ちょっと休みたいんだよね。嘘なしで。
Bruh.
やめてよ。
はいはい。
はいはいじゃ。
Whoa, okay, okay, okay. Whoa, whoa. Hey,
安城、
Yukiatsu?
今宿ミラと遊んでんだよ。おーい、みんなこっち。ああ、なんだよこの茶番。
Nicely done.
Uh-huh, yeah,
There is
yeah.
no one else. Ah, this is an interaction I really didn't know I wanted.
男に絡まれる女を助ける。俺の人生の中で最もベタな出来事だな。
助けるって
残念ながら腕力にはないし。
何それ？
それにしても神みたい
Yeah.
なお前。
Yeah. No, he recognizes it. Yep.
お
Yeah,
前
he's getting
処女
back
な
a
の？
little bit of his confidence.
何か問題が？
俺と付き合ってみるか？宿みか？あんなののどこがいいんだ？
どこがいいって決めつけ
I
ない
love
で
how
よ。
curt he is being with her, though.
みんなのリーダーで頭良くて運動もできて。
髪とかもっとちゃんとしたら平成ジャンプの山ちゃんに少し似てると思うし。
なるほど。
He's getting her to talk openly and be real.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here we
Being
go.
honest.
Yeah.
With themselves.
Yeah. Because she's dishonest. That's the thing about her. That's rough. Is she's not willing to be honest. And
なんか
yeah. Oh, here we go. Here we
話し
go.
づらくなって本当はちょっと嬉しかった。でも
But he doesn't
宿みは
go to
メンマ
school.
のこと
He's
忘
stuck
れ
in
ら
the
れない
past.
し。
Yep. So you're stuck in the past with him.
忘れられない宿みを
Yep.
お前は忘れられない。取り残されちまってんだ。
Oh, come on. I want to see her response to that. Come on. Come on. Ugh. This show.
よしった。
Oh.
僕
This is why he comes out here?
なんでお前がうちで飯食ってんだよ。 山菜提供したじゃねえの。そうだ、メンマーいる？本気で信じてるの？
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, he doesn't see her
た
though.
じゃねえかこの間。
Yeah.
でもメンマがここにいるってことは多分いいことじゃないよな。成
Oh.
仏できねえとかさ。
Oh, okay. I don't think it's
だか
that.
ら
I think
こ
it's
こにいるんじゃないのか。成仏。
I think it's more that it's not actually entirely Menma. There's more to it than just that.
ああ、メンマー。ちょっとでもさ、ひどくね。お前のことを成仏させてやりてんだ。おい、久川。なあ、メンマー。ジンタンだけじゃなくてさ、俺の前にも現れてくれよ。
Yeah, she doesn't know what's going on. It's just... Yeah. All right, okay. Yeah, please. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Wow, they really had this edited to quickly jump through a whole bunch of interactions.
Yep.
In some ways it almost felt a bit incomplete at parts, but we got so many big solid punches of character stuff. Y'all, this show is just phenomenal.
Isn't it wonderful?
It does the character interaction stuff perfectly. It sets up everything with good, clean foreshadowing, and yeah, it just moves along super quickly. And in some ways, this episode was almost too fast. This show has 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 episodes constantly, and this was the first 8.5 out of 10 episode for me because it was
just because you wanted more of the moments that we got.
Yeah, I felt like they jumped around too quickly with some of the characters, but it's some of the stuff that we got, specifically with Yukiatsu and Tsuruko, who, by the way, every time that they're involved in the story as a pairing, I love it. I really, really identify a lot with Tsuruko. And seeing Yukiatsu struggle in a more open light, if you will, I very much understand where he's coming from, too.
In a lot of ways, I love that there was, because the episode starts and we have the whole scene on the mountain finishing, right?
Yep.
And it's intense, right?
Yeah.
But then, and the fact that he opens up of, no, I'm the guilty one, right? It's because of what I did, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. But then afterwards, we see this very quick about turn, and it's like he's a whole new person because
he's free.
He's free.
He's free. In some ways, he was because of the fact that he had the most overt reaction or coping mechanism. That it's easy for the friends to go, "Hey, intervention time. We're gonna help you, whether you want it or not." And we find out, oh yeah, he very much wanted help. The way he pinned down Jinta and was like, "Look at me. Do you think I'm okay?
Right.
Do I look like I'm okay?
So why isn't she showing up?
Right. Why is she showing up for you, man?"
Yeah.
And that's something that Jinta has to think about in this episode. And he very much quickly is like, no. I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
So that's its own thing.
Right.
But the Yukiatsu stuff, I just want to go through it really quickly here, kind of linearly. When he has the flashback, we then see very clearly what ended up going on with him. He liked her very clearly.
Yep.
It wasn't subtle or anything over the course of this. It wasn't some new thing that we learned through the backstory. But that he actually confessed to her. And as kids, that would happen all the time. You'd have those little moments where you're like, this means the world to me.
Yeah.
I'm freaking out. I'm going to actually confess that I love someone at 10 years old or something.
Right.
And it's adorable. It's cute. But she doesn't like him. Not in that way. So she does the 10-year-old kind of response of, yeah, we'll talk about this later. I have to go. Jinta, I don't know. And then, of course, then he, gets, really frustrated and he throws the little hair clip away. And it's like, oh, that's so sad.
Yep.
But we saw a little something later in the episode that gave us a little hint as to what might be set up for someone else's backstory with regards to that. So, it's confirmed. He definitely did like her, but not only that, he actually confessed to her.
Yeah.
Then at this moment where he's alone, he's then realizing, oh, okay, all right, that's the way things are. That's the way things were.
And like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
you know,
he has
being
to let this go.
right.
Yeah.
And being 10 or however old they were when that happened,
Right.
you know, it's hard to tell with anime characters, but
Totally.
And you work up the courage to confess your feelings to this person
Yeah.
when you know that there's someone else that likes them and that they also might like. Like, it
Yeah.
might not be you, right?
Yeah.
And after all of this stuff happens, you're like, hey, I like you. And then, not only do they not like you, but then you never see them again. Like,
I could not imagine what that would be like. Because one, on some level, you think that on some level, because not only did she not take the hair clip, which I think in some ways would have been, I don't know if that would have been better or not. Like, it would have made things, and it would have been a different problem then. But the fact then that he feels like, oh, he was actually the one that caused this then, and he loved her, which, let's be real, we sometimes give kids not enough credit. He probably actually loved her.
Yeah.
Like, who's to say that, you know, this 10-year-old kid doesn't know what love is or what have you? No, I'm
in a lot
sure.
of ways, I feel like you understand love better sometimes when you're younger. Like,
Sure, that's very true.
from a certain point of view.
Yeah, from
you know.
a certain point of view. Yeah. And yet then he ends up just having to deal with the fact that she dies the same day.
Right.
So
like, probably while chasing after Jintan,
Yeah.
you know, she's running, she slips, and it's like, oh God,
what
was
if
it
I had
because
chased after her?
what if I had chased after her? Is it because what I said, if I had managed to get her to not chase after Jintan,
Oh
would
my
she
God.
still be alive? Was she distracted because of the things I said, and that's why she didn't see whatever it was she slipped on?
Right.
You know, like
So there's so many things that you think about, but also this is the other thing we need to remember about when you're that young. Most people have a pretty decent memory of, I would say, the last, 5 to 10 years, like, of a lot of little things here and there. But when you get to the ages of like 10 and you're like 17 or something, or however old Yukiyatsu is at this point, and it's around a really intense emotional thing, your brain can do things where you localize and you dump and you organize and you reprioritize memories based on a bunch of different things. The emotions, your actual like mental health and survival and stuff like that, a whole bunch of things. So he might not be remembering things perfectly, and thus it makes it exponentially more painful, or even in some ways, not even the real memory as to what he had there.
right, it would definitely take on a life of its own.
Exactly.
Hence,
Or
trauma.
Or, yes, exactly. Or it's something where he has seen it so many times in his head that every painstaking second
Yep.
is focused on, hyper-intensified.
He remembers exactly what happened.
Everything.
Yeah.
And
Right.
thus, he then wants to experience it, or at the very least be close to her in those moments. He dresses as her. It makes perfect sense.
And the thing that you mentioned of going back to the mountain for the hair clip, that makes total sense. For some reason, when I watched this show, I didn't put that two and two together. That's why he was there.
That's probably
right?
why
and
he was there.
That's because he doesn't want his secret, this thing when he's not okay with being vulnerable with these people that used to be his friends.
Right.
There's no way he would want to be vulnerable with them in this way, right? But he's like, no, because this was brought up. That's right. I threw that hair clip away. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Maybe even after all these years, it'll still be there.
Wait. Yeah. Wait. Did he know that Jinta was seeing Menma before we found out that he was dressing up as Menma?
Yes, because that in like the first episode, I think he runs into
Right.
Jinta runs into
With
him and
Sudoku.
Sudoku, and he lets it slip or whatever.
Right. And then
That's when it starts to dredge everything back
and
up.
then Yukiyatsu then goes and buys.
The dress. And
Oh my
yeah.
God, this show is really good at setting up these little things, because it's a really tight plot. But the fact that then that is why he then ends up going and buying things is that he then has to be forced to remember all this stuff again. So in some ways, he might have been okay for the most part by not dealing with it.
He'd figured out an established equilibrium, essentially. There was maybe this place in his mind that he didn't go because there was a lot of unresolved painful things there, but he'd sequestered it, and he had figured out how to live a fairly put together life, right?
He wasn't healthy fully.
Wasn't healthy fully, but he was definitely functioning, right?
Right. So then he gets upset because this stuff gets brought up. He then goes and puts on this stuff. Tsuruko notices, and also that then brings up the idea as to why she had only brought this up now was because this was a recent development.
Right.
Meaning that this was a thing where she's already hyper-tuned to what Yukiyatsu is doing and feeling. So when she starts to see this erratic behavior in time with Jinta bringing up Menma again, she's like, aha, I'm smart. I put the 2 and 2 together. It makes sense. But him going specifically back here to this mountain, he probably wasn't running around aimlessly hoping for Popo or someone to see him. He was probably looking for the hair clip. And then having Menma be the one that would go back to grab the hair clip is probably some idealized thing in his imagination.
If only that had happened, if only she hadn't gone off running.
If she had gone back to grab the hair clip, then maybe she wouldn't have, died. Yeah. Oh my God. It's a headcanon for sure, but I think it fits so well.
There's this thing that oftentimes gets brought up in stories when people are talking about how good the characters are, and they'll talk about how consistent the characters are.
Yeah.
And for what that's worth, I think that can be really good. Sure. But one of the things that I think can be really tough to do is have the emotions feel consistent. And I'm not meaning consistent in that they're always the same, but that you can always track the genesis of the emotions,
exactly.
right? You can tell when it starts, why it starts, and things like that. And you might not necessarily...
Consistent doesn't mean flat.
Right, exactly. And you might not be able to figure that out right away or things like that, right? But that the breadcrumb trail is there so that you can see... Even though you can't necessarily see actually inside the head of all the characters, you can see how their internal state shifts and changes and ebbs and flows over the course of the story and the conflict. And that's one of the things that I think this show just does amazingly really well. Yeah. I love it to death for it, and I love getting people to watch this show.
Yeah, and then he has his talk with Yuriko or Anaru. I love how we got kind of the full kind of gamut of her name in this episode as well. Someone calling out to her formally, and then also her friends talking to her informally and stuff. In this case here, when he kind of does the, hey, I'm going to get you out of this stupid situation with this guy who's taking a little bit advantage of your,
being a shitbag.
Yeah, exactly. And ends up kind of stepping a little bit out of bounds, I would say, on the train by just being honest and curt. And what I think is really important about this thing is that we get to see a new side of Yukiyatsu.
Yes.
He is in some ways completely different from how we've seen him before. He's pushing into other people's space. He's like, hey, what's going on? What's your deal?
It's one of those things where he's already been made vulnerable with these people that were his friends, right? In a way that he didn't want to have happen. So now he doesn't need to keep things inside anymore, right? If he has a thought, he can held up. Yeah, exactly, right. And in a lot of ways, a lot of the conflict in this show with Yukiyatsu, but also with other characters, revolves around the whole idea of not saying things maybe when they wish they had, especially in the case of Menma, because she ended up dying. So, it's the, if he's thinking something, he ends up saying it.
Yep. I love it because in this case we then see that that's one of the biggest problems with Anaru is that she's actually unwilling to be honest.
And with Tsuruko too.
Oh yeah, with herself, with everyone. And then in this case here, he ends up asking enough questions to where she finally just starts talking on her own. And this is the point where he just sits back and listens. And I love it. This is in some ways what a good friend should do.
Exactly.
Is ask really good questions and be like, hey, you okay?
Yeah, no judgment here.
And then they, give you kind of the canned response. So then you angle your questions a little bit more. because you're not going to then deny and be like, no, you're not okay.
Right, you have to tell me or whatever.
Because then you go into statement thing of going you, and you kind of end up being a little bit just kind of judgmental for no reason. But no, you can get smarter with this and just ask more pointed questions to get that emotional response to be like, are you sure? Are you sure about that?
Right.
And he knows. He's observant. He also recognizes one faker, to
Right,
another.
exactly. Yeah.
So in this case, yeah, she's able to then be open with him and be like, yeah, I'm not sure anymore. There's a lot of things that are confusing about what she's feeling inside, and she needs to let it out. And in this case, she actually feels safe enough to be able to talk about that with Yukiyatsu.
Yep.
Yukiyatsu, in a lot of ways, being someone that she would have, I would say, probably not actually spent a lot of time thinking about. Like, in a lot of ways, they seem to have some kind of, like, non-relationship within the dynamic of the group.
Yeah, they're very different people, yet as a result of a lot of the things that have happened,
they found actually some common ground.
Right, they found common ground. They've been put in some similar situations, yeah.
Yeah, but because their gaze was focused in different directions, but they actually both did end up being kind of similar in that they both liked the two people who ended up liking each other. They can kind of connect on that. And I liked how he kind of casually brought up things to kind of break a little bit of the tension. I mean, like, are you a virgin? And she's just like, what the hell?
Kind of
question?
Right.
And then he's like, why don't we just start dating? And then she's like,
hold on.
Wait. So what's great about this is that while a lot of it just seemed to be kind of like, hey, poke. Like, are you going to answer any of my questions? Or like, are you willing to be honest or like what have you? This ended up leading to a situation where then she was willing to talk. And then what was the thing that he asked her? And then I wish... Oh. No, he didn't. He made a statement. And and he's like, we were left behind.
Right.
And that line just sits there and sustains for not enough time, dang it, because then we end up cutting the scene to Popo, and it's adorable what Popo is doing, but I need that processing of that question there. And Popo's great, but I feel like if anything, they're like, okay, now we gotta move the story along. We've got a couple like plot things we need to do, so we gotta chop.
We're on episode 5 already. We're almost halfway through the show.
We need to get Popo's emotional characterization set up and grounded here, and he ends up doing kind of the equivalent of what Yukiyatsu is doing. But he's focusing it on Menma, which is in some ways focusing it on himself, and then that leads to part of this whole thing being that this is hurting Menma. Menma's in pain because of this. But also, this is the kind of thing that Jinta doesn't want to necessarily get into as well, because he has been trying to distract himself with regards to the whole thing that's going on with why Menma is there.
I love how the characters are handled in this show. Like the whole bit with Popo, and this thing here, like, well, I'm excited for when I'll be able to talk about that in full. But it is not this day. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to also bring up about the whole Popo situation? Because there was something else that I wanted to talk about from this episode.
You go for it.
Okay, so Sudoku.
Yeah, Sudoku.
Now I feel like this is something where we've gotten a little bit of a bow tied together on Sudoku's situation. Yeah, because it's been kind of up in the air a little bit. It's like, okay, she's falling around Yukiyatsu, but
the thing I mentioned.
They are definitely not dating, right?
Yeah.
And when they talk, he's like, hey, you're just being so normal, it's kind of unsettling. Like, what's going on?
Right.
And
now it's confirmed. She not only liked him, she likes him.
Yes.
And also her whole thing with the little clip, hair clip thing.
Yeah.
She has the original one because it was the dirty one.
Yep.
And then that means that in the flashback, she went and grabbed the actual thing out of the woods.
Yep.
Which is why he's probably still looking for it and hasn't found it yet. And that means that she was there when the confession was made. So she heard him say that he loved Menma.
So she
when
knew,
she liked.
Right, when she liked him. So she knows that he doesn't like her.
Yep.
And when she's sitting there with him. Now, one of the things that I love about this, right, is that she is the person that has been the closest to Yukiatsu this entire time. Right? But she's kind of holding Yukiatsu at a distance. Even here, after this, even after the vulnerability has been put on display, right?
Yeah.
And Yukiatsu's like, come on, like I feel different as a result of just having that been able to get out there.
Why aren't you changing a little bit?
Why aren't you changing? And what I like to think is that this is something where it's that whole defense mechanism thing where, like, when she notices that he's going to go off and run after Anjo, she's like, you know, she has that whole sort of, you know, like this cold exterior. And here, like, she sits on the opposite side of the seats from him, right? Like if she had actually started talking to him, right? You know, because here in this episode, he ends up saying, "Hey, I don't know, why don't we just start dating?" Right? Like Tsuruko, what are you doing? What are you doing, girl? Like,
Man.
it's
Yeah, it hurts. I definitely can see a lot of things with Tsuruko that talk volumes about her inconsistencies, actually. One of the things that him bringing up the fact that she's the same so much that it's unnerving, that's because it's
that's an
forced.
inconsistency, right?
That
Exactly.
That
Yeah,
in itself is an inconsistency. One of the things that is wonderful about human beings is that the connections that we share mean that everyone has some potential way to influence everyone, or anyone can influence anyone, meaning that the smallest little thing can ripple out to someone that ripples out to someone else, and then so and so, and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
But because these two are so close, at least in the very form of, like, they physically spend a lot of time together.
But maybe they're not that close after
But
all.
maybe she's actually, like, kept a very good, solid wall up to make sure that she's protected, at least from her perspective. He then starts to feel that little bit of freedom of, like, whoa, actually, I'm
a new man.
I'm potentially able to, you know, do a little bit of this and be a little free and just be like, oh, okay.
All right.
And then he looks at her and he's like, whoa, she's stiff. She's inflexible. Like, what's going on?
And then he leaves.
Yeah. 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 It's something where I can definitely feel Tsuruko's
Angst.
not angst, I would say. We were talking about being a fake in the stuff with Naru and Yukiatsu, but this is what it means for being a fake, I think, for Tsuruko, is that Tsuruko's whole exterior is fake. It's not a thing of where she is, in some ways, like, intentionally being fake now, but it was that probably so long ago, she molded herself to be fake to where it doesn't take any effort anymore. It's subconscious. So when she talks about here, and this is one that I think is really important here, she says there are certain things one can't bear without changing one's clothes.
Yeah.
And we got in the backstory the hair clip thing, which then we find out she has, which means at that point she could not bear either the combination of not knowing what happened to Menma and then Menma dying, but also Yukiatsu essentially loving someone else and realizing that she won't get him to love her.
Yeah.
So then she basically changes her clothes. She actively changes who she is. And this is the thing I wanted to go and bring up, is that back then, when she was, you know, little and stuff, do we actually see her in the flashback?
Yeah, she's got kind of like a...
Or actually,
like
we can go to the
pixie cut or something.
We can go to the OP, actually. One of the things that I noticed about her a bit is she is actually wearing, like, bright colors. She's a little bit, like, she's got a little flower thing in her hair. She seems a lot more childlike and free.
Sure.
In this, she looks like, I am the responsible professional adult. I do not wear anything but my uniform.
Right. I've already killed myself inside. Like, you know, from the standpoint of, like, any part of me, really, is just, I've put it to death. It's gone.
Yeah.
And now I'm...
So she's literally, again, projecting out a little bit of just her own problems and flaws, but she only sees it with other people.
Right. And after all of this, then she goes back, she looks at the hair clip, right?
Yep. Tries
it on.
adjust it.
Right, puts it on, takes the glasses off, and it's like, no, I can't even see. Yeah, okay. Right, because it's this wonderful thing where I feel like Tsuruko is kind of trapped within herself in this cage of her own making.
Yeah, she can't untrap herself.
Right, because she's so deep in this rut, right? Like, she's had the hair clip there for a long time. She never...
A long time.
She never gave it to Yukiatsu or anything or be like, hey, here you go. Like, you know, nothing like that, right? She never... Yeah. So, even when she realizes that Yukiatsu needs help, she goes to Jintan and is like, hey, can you go confront him? Like, she calls out to him in the end, right? But so many opportunities that she has to be closer, kind of.
Well, that's the thing.
And she does this.
Well, she's not actively doing that. That's the thing. I think that's the thing that's killer about her, is that she changed her clothes years ago. This is something that makes her different from Yukiatsu. Yukiatsu sequestered. I think he basically compartmentalized.
Okay.
And was able to basically kind of pretend like everything's okay. And for his conscious mind, everything was. She did basically the same thing, except she hasn't had something that would dredge up basically the literal like separation that she went through way back when.
Sure.
So in that respect, her choice might have been more conscious than Yukiatsu's. Yukiatsu's probably was something that was more violently painful in the moment, so that he basically couldn't deal with it. But hers was more of something of like, oh, this isn't going to work. This isn't something that's going to happen that way. Fine, I'll just shell.
Like,
and then now years later, no, I don't think she has even like a conscious clue about how she would get out necessarily. It's just when she sees someone who's maybe a little bit expressive, maybe a little bit free, like Anaru, having those moments where she's, kind of pretending a little bit.
Yeah, even if she's, even if she's pretending,
she's kind of
choosing
having that
to pretend.
That free bit part. Yeah, it is her choice. That actively frustrates her. She's like, why can't I even pretend that? Like, why can't I even fake that?
Right.
And it's like, I can't wait for Tsuruko's in-depth moment, because I think she's my favorite of all the side characters.
Okay.
Just, I would say. I'm not sure. I love all the characters so much, but I see myself in Tsuruko so much. It's just such a well done character.
And it's so tough to do those cold type characters because you kind of have to do them in parallel with other characters so that you can see their sort of responses and things, because it really is not easy to get them to actually open up. Yeah. Because they've gotten very good at not doing that, right? They specifically have gotten good at not doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, but even so, there's all this stuff that's there to see if you look for it. But, but like but it can be missed, and that's why I love that you're catching it, because
Anaru, I loved how she did end up essentially relenting to the friends. And then, of course, we had to have a douchebag college guy that, is being a practical predator at this point. They're in high school. Jesus. Then, thankfully, we have someone that can snap her out of this and give her a choice to run away here, even though he was starting to physically push himself on her at the end. Thank goodness for Yukiatsu there. That was awesome. I loved how he could tell,
he's a smart kid.
Well, right, but he could tell there was going to be something off about it because of the bag. Meaning that all the way back here, when they were waiting for another train...
He's like, oh, wait.
He's like, oh, my spidey senses are tingling.
Yeah,
Which, I gotta say, I love when these kinds of little things happen because they're a little bit of ways to just have a little bit of a convenience aspect for the characters to shift really quickly to a different conversation.
But it makes sense.
But it makes so much sense that it would be him specifically that would go, wait a minute.
Right. It's a convenience that he saw her, right? But the fact that he saw her from that point, it's like,
and
oh,
it had the intuition,
hold on.
like kind of ping of like,
I know something's up.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And when he left, like he was like, oh, I was already like late for home. So it's like, this is something where he's committed. He's like, I am,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
like, what is he doing during all this time that they're doing karaoke? Like it might not have been that long or what have you, but is he literally like following them like the whole way and stuff?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. That's just something where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, dang, dude, you really could tell that something was off then.
Yeah. Well, and
Which, by the way, that's something that I don't know if this is just a thing we would only know if we were from Japan, but they showed the brand name of the stuff that she bought. And the other boy mentioned that she's wearing all black underneath. So, given that when we see her actually at the train,
oh, did he like recognize it, like that it would?
I'm wanting to check that. Okay, she was in her outfit there for school, so no.
Right.
The thing that she ended up wearing to the karaoke thing was probably the outfit that she bought.
Sure.
But that means that she probably also bought the lingerie, the fancy underwear specifically for this. And yet that was probably something that was more pressured into by the friends.
Yeah, like
because they're planning to sleep with. They're planning to get some that night as well, probably.
Well, in that whole conversation with Anohana and her friends at the school, where it's like she's already said no, that she doesn't want to go, but they're like, no, you're coming with us anyways. Like, we were even talking about how we might not be able to be friends with you anymore, but no, that's mean. Like,
yeah, they even set it up with it. He's such a horny animal. He wrote "I love you" in a text and stuff. So it's basically like the guys know they're looking to have sex as well. Like they're specifically there for that as well. And then the guy like senses I sense weakness. I can exploit this and I can isolate us. And then, and it's like, God, I hate guys like this.
But
anyway,
I love Yukiatsu's way that he diffuses the situation. Oh, hey everyone, Anara's over here. Like,
yeah, I'm smart and handsome, but I'm not
strong. Like, that wouldn't happen.
That was another.
I could not do that.
Right, that was another aspect of him being honest in a way that's confident, and it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way self-deprecating, because he's like, I mean. Have you seen my frame? No, I couldn't actually deliver a convincing punch.
You guys saw my muscles when I wore that one piece,
Right, exactly. Yeah, but then when he actually left the train station or the subway, area in the first place, and then it goes back to Sudoku after when Yukiatsu at the beginning, he's like, "You're being so normal, it's unnerving."
Right.
He leaves, and she just goes back to turning the page, just turning the page of her book. Yep. I don't care.
Guys, there was so much in this episode, we've been given a lot of time to discuss it, but we do have to talk about the fact that Menma then is crying at the end of this episode because she has no idea about her wish or anything about why this is happening or anything like that. We don't even know that this is like fully Menma. Now, we do know that there's only one Menma,
and it is actually a ghost.
And it is actually a ghost, right, yeah, of course, for sure. But there is that whole thing of where Menma is, like doing things and stuff and kind of having those little moments of like, why am I here? This is something where it's a mystery for Menma as well. And it's not something where Menma came here with a goal that she, intentionally chose with regards to that. This is a strange coincidence.
Right. She kind of has the direct plot reason for a concrete character arc,
Right.
There's in the same way that all of them have some kind of emotional turmoil within them that they might not recognize, realize, or be willing to face.
Yep.
She has something as well, but she cannot pass on without having that be fulfilled. But she's not sure. She doesn't understand exactly what it is.
It's gonna take everyone.
Yep. Exactly.
To figure that out. So
and
y'all,
friends have been coming back together. There's still conflicts and things like that, but...
But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
That's right. Wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines. It also, 6 friends that are like family and their struggles and everything. It's on Amazon. If you want to check it out, the link's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see it there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.